The event is a grand tour of the historic Rutland prison ruins.
Go straight, take a right.
So the road, there will be a road going right?
This is Camp Road.
Okay. Where can we park? So we're looking for something over there. Oh, okay.
And you will just walk.
And then we'll just walk it. Thank you.
Graffiti all over the walls.
By the road, maybe 2 miles, because that's
Arlen Drive.
upon a time long, long ago, deep in the enchanted forest, there lived a woman called Old Mother West Wind, or was it East Wind? I forgot what wing it was. Anyway, it was a farm, and it was owned by a guy long before my time, and his name was Walker, Captain Jonas Walker, or Elias Walker or something.
Yeah.
And his house was right over here, and it had the biggest elm tree around here. Even after it wasn't the prison camp, there was only one camp. It was known for the elm tree. Back when, 100 years ago, this was started, say, 1904.
Yeah.
So that elm tree was on Walker's farm. They kept Walker's house, and they used it for the administration building, the mess hall. They used it for a lot of stuff while they were building the farm, because the prisoners, with some help from engineering and money from the state.
Prison for what?
Prisoners, they were minimum security prisoners, for burglary, assault.
What year was that?
Not the hard.
This thing they bought the land, say, like 1902 or 1903.
So it's the 19, yeah, okay.
They probably opened it in 1904 or 1905, and then it ran until the state decided they wanted to keep this land pristine for watershed, because they put in a dam, and they were channeling the water to Boston. So all the land around it, they wanted to have no houses. So all the houses and all the farms that were around here are all gone. Several mills, and then as well this prison camp had to go and the hospital had to go. So they tore it all down, and people could buy the buildings and use the wood.
The number of people living
in the
here?
hospital?
Yes.
I'm going to say between 100 and 120.
Okay.
Okay, how many houses were here?
Yeah.
This was a little village. It was really a, what do you call a little village? A hamlet. A hamlet. It was called New Boston.
Okay.
That was before the prison. So there were 3 or 4 or 5 houses, and you know the houses were kind of close together because they were the houses for the farms. But these farms, I think Walker's farm was 800 or 900 acres, which was, and the state bought the whole thing and made it into the
Prison.
hospital
Hospital,
and the
prison.
prison. The hospital is over there on the hill. We can walk there. They'll probably go out some of the buildings,
Okay.
and they tore them down because it was a depression. Everybody was
Okay.
poor. Right. I think maybe the MDC, the Metropolitan District Commission. You know, this is rough. Let's say 1932.
32, yeah.
Everything had to be out of here. So what they said is, we'll auction off the buildings. You got to take them down to ground level, and we'll take care of the rest.
Yeah.
So my folks, and it was right over here, the ice house and a couple of small buildings. And I remember as a kid playing on this thing, we used to call it the tin house. And it was a homemade, out of metal, like a cab for a tractor. And they had made their own tractor out of a Model T and shaped this piece of metal for the cab, so you could be, and we used it when I was a kid. It was a chicken house.
Okay.
And then, you know, with the kids, we would play in it, and it's probably still out in the woods. In EY, Heaney.
Heaney.
It's
Okay.
an Irish name.
Yeah. 80 acres?
About 1,000.
1,000.
We're gonna start from the group cellar. We're gonna group up, we'll introduce the commission. Get some walkways. So we can have our commissioners come on up. Don't worry about Dr. Custodio. He's a. I'm coming. That's all right. Take your time. Mark, come on up. Yep. Well, oh, come on up. This is a great showing.
The commission.
The commission. So, all right. So, welcome everybody for coming out. I'm Jeff Stillings with the Rutland Historical Commission, and I want to introduce our commission members. Our chair is Peter Pacerb, and our members Jen Ledger, Lynn Turcott, and Mark Photo in there. And also we have Dan, who is the noted historian. So he comes from the Suhaki family, goes back probably to the beginning of times.
Almost 100 years in town, only got kicked out once.
He's only been deported once. Not bad. So Dan Suhaki is a noted historian of all things Rutland, and I know a lot of you had questions on, you know, the history, and there's no better person to defer those questions to. Our objective today, and why we posted this public meeting, and this is a public meeting, so you know that's why Jen Ledger is our clerk, and she'll be taking notes for the minutes of the meeting in case we discuss anything amongst ourselves, because we have a quorum here. The brief history of why we got to this point. Earlier in the year at our historical commission meeting, the DCR was in attendance, and they
Actually, Jeff, can I interrupt you for
Oh,
a second?
sorry.
I need to call the meeting to order.
Okay.
It's 12. I just need to be official here. It's 12:27.
got it.
So we'll make a note of that. And yes, welcome everybody. Good to have you here. I'm really impressed with the turnout.
Yeah.
This is fantastic, and I'm really pleased to see the interest that everybody has in the prison camp ruins. And we look forward to your input and your thoughts as to how we can preserve this very unique and valuable site for future generations here in the town of Rutland. Go ahead, Jeff.
Absolutely, thank you. So earlier in the year, the DCR presented to our commission, the town commission, that they intended to demolish all the ruins here. And they stated that, because of the graffiti that you see, and safety issues, and they stated that there was no historical significance. So that's where we objected to, say, well, there is historical significance, and there is, as you can see coming up here, you didn't pass, there's hunters, but there's bicyclists, there's simple hikers, there's dog walkers, and what you don't see, probably because of the hunting season, is equestrians. There's quite a bit of horse traffic through here. And this is all public land. We own this. We all own this.
Are expected to somehow have some kind of signage for this area, and definitely to obviously try to remove a lot of the graffiti as best as we can. So basically to get the good idea for the general public of what kind of a site this is, because as you can see right now, it's just a bunch of old structures that nobody really understands the significance of, unless you're from town, unless you've been told about it.
Right.
And, I mean, obviously most of us have an understanding, but out of the thousands, tens of thousands of people who come through here, or who could come through here, they have no idea. Most people, a lot of people don't even know this exists.
Incorporated, and one of it was you had to have 60 established families, and it took time to have families established. You had to have a school structure, some sort of a mercantile or a bit of commerce, a church, things like that. And
Especially when the Indian War is going on, because we lost people right then. So
right.
So they're trying to develop. We're on the frontier. They're trying to develop the town.
Yep.
There's an Indian War going on.
1713, this was the frontier.
This was.
Right, and in 1714, and in 1713, the records indicate, beginning selectman and a constable, Moses Howe, our first constable. And in 1714, Chief Greylock's tribe.
22, the first attack from Greylock.
Greylock, what was his tribe? Greylock from New York, Vermont.
Come on. Abnack.
Yep. Abenaki, right? So Mount Greylock. So his warriors came down and laid siege to the town of Rutland. Killed the town reverend and his kids and another individual. And we had the grist mill and then some industry. They always generate near a rolling river, and this was that area. We had significant people who lived in this area. The Second Lady of the United States, an indentured servant at one point of her life, grew up to be an aristocrat, became Second Lady of the United States to Vice President Aaron Burr in there. Her name was Eliza Burr, and she grew up here. We have a Minuteman, an actual Minuteman who rode shotgun with Paul Revere, is buried on the grounds of the DCI property here in the Goose Hill Cemetery. I don't want to put you on the spot, Dan, but you...
Almost a quarter of the town area.
Yep.
And it's the only place that, well, it's the biggest place around that the state can't, or not the state, but the state can hold that can't be built on.
Yep.
So we've got an area here that'll be open not just to us, but for next few generations at least.
Yep.
We don't know a lot of other places that are going to be here that long.
Yep. And this is part of the Boston's watershed. The Weir River watershed provides, well, we're a conduit for providing water drinking water to 43 Metro Boston communities in Boston. So that's why this is preserved. That's why building has been ceased in this area. That's why, turn of the last century, buildings have been raised and moved from the area of the Long Pond and things like that. So this is part of the watershed because of the Ware River that goes there. And we also have a shaft in the area, shaft 6, I believe, that goes 150 feet underground from the Quabbin. So the Quabbin feeds Boston, and it's, 80 miles away, but it goes through a series of underground shafts, which goes right under us here. And then it goes to different pumping stations where it pumps the water up again, and then it shafts down slowly, 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 up again to make it. It takes 2 years for a drop of water from the Quabbin to make it to Boston. But the drops of water at Quabbin is the lifeline of Metro Boston. 43 towns, 43 communities in there. Rutland, ironically, does not tap into that. Even though the water supply goes right under our town, we don't touch that. It's all Metro. So now, but that was a Native American grinding stone in the north. Cornerstone. Yep.
Came off of her farm.
Came right off of the North Rutland area. It's
We also had that gristmill wheel that's uncommon as well.
yeah, and that was all in this
It
area.
was in this area.
It was all in this area. But the prison camp, people, it wasn't a World War II prison camp. It was a sheriff's work farm, and it also housed prisoners with tuberculosis. Tuberculosis was the COVID of the day in the early 20th century. Rutland had, 13 sanatoriums?
Yeah, and the first 100 prisoners here were all TB patients.
TB. This is where they put the TB patients in there. Very comparable to the COVID situation we were in with the unknowns. And what they thought, their theory was that being 1,200 feet above sea level, Rutland's clean air would help solve the tuberculosis in there. Yeah, we had 13 plus sanatoriums in this town, and this was one of them.
More per capita than definitely anywhere in the state, and I think anywhere in the country, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So this was pretty much the TB sanatorium capital of the area, if not the world, maybe even the world.
For our visitors out of town, we are celebrating our 300th birthday in June, our tricentennial. Rutland was incorporated or founded in 1713, but we became an official town 9 years later in 1722. You had to fulfill certain requirements before the Parliament, it was British at the time, allowed a town to be incorporated, and one of it was you had to have 60 established families. And it took time to have families established. You had to have a school structure, some sort of a mercantile or a bit of commerce, church, things like that. And
Especially when the Indian War is going on, because we lost people right then. So
right.
So they're trying to develop. We're on the frontier. They're trying to develop the town.
Yep.
There's an Indian War
In
going.
1713, this was the frontier.
This was.
Right? And in 1714, and in 1713, the records indicate, beginning selectman and a constable, Moses Howe, our first constable. And in 1714, Chief Greylock's tribe.
22, the first attack from Greylock.
Greylock, what was his tribe? Greylock from New York, Vermont. Yep. Abenaki, right? So Mount Greylock. So his warriors came down and laid siege to the town of Rutland. Killed the town reverend and his kids, other individual. So imagine being the constable of the Wild West and having to deal with an Indian siege. So if you look at the beginning structure of, you didn't just say, I'm going to live out here in the country. It's right, you had to live in almost like a round type of environment so that the able-bodied men could alarm themselves when there was a siege going on. If you go to the Rufus Putnam house, there's a hidden spot behind the fireplace. It was all around defense. It's a different mindset. Yeah. So Dan gave a great presentation at our Moses House tribute in there about the siege. So when the siege came in, someone had to go out and alarm everybody. Hey, we're under attack. We're under attack. And the men gathered in response and was able to fight them back a little bit. That's what Rutland was. It wasn't choice whether you wanted to keep the bear arms. You did. You had arms, you know, because you had to protect yourself. This was the Wild West. And some of the history. Okay, yeah. And this was right at the line, right here. Moses, how you see they went to the Brookfields a little bit, and they pulled back. So it wasn't quite ready, maybe, for inhabitation. And they came back. And it took a while. And then after Rufus Putnam, which was 50-something years later, that's when they went to Ohio. And Rufus Putnam, who was chief of staff for George Washington, who lived here for 9 years, he developed the Ohio Territory. It's right here in Rutland. And then he went over to Marietta, Ohio, and developed that area. Which was not yet part of the United States.
For those of you who don't know, his house, which is still standing, is right across from Chief Anderson. That's what's on the town seal.
Yeah. Oak House was seized for a British story. So the victors go the spoils. When they lost the revolution, they took the house, and that was that. Yeah. Rode them out of town.
Yeah.
So as far as war connections, at the beginning of China Kill in 122A is the Continental Barracks. During the Revolutionary War, they had a barracks there and a small prisoner of war area where they held German mercenaries, Hessian soldiers, and some British officers. And we had a conversation earlier that what was it like? It was almost like work release. The officers would be there during the day, and then at night they would be able to go out into town. They even allowed one of the British officers to be armed to go to the tavern and then come check himself back in there. It was kind of like Otis from Andy Griffith. There's a well and
The Hessian well is you can see from the road.
Yeah.
One's on the property on the corner.
The stone, partial stone foundation with
Not
the
where the
barracks.
barracks used to be. There's
No?
nothing there. No, it's a horse paddock now.
So
Oh, okay.
if there's not a marker on there, you know, it doesn't exist almost. You know, if you don't lock it in that this is what happened here,
Right.
it's up to us to do that. So there are things here that we want to be able to note. So there's basically, well, they claim 4 structures around here. You have the sheriff's cell. This is called the root cellar. There's a wall. And then there's something that we do not object to. It's an open pit. It's like a hallway in there, and there is an open pit in there that's a safety hazard that we wouldn't necessarily object to grading that off so that somebody or a dog doesn't fall into that. The tunnel, yeah. But
You have to make that official.
we can have that talk. And we would absolutely like you.
The sheriff's office.
Any initial questions, sir?
Years of operation for the prison camp. So it goes back to the times when you said early 20th century.
Not the prison camp. The sheriff's work farm was 1900, early 1900s to 1938. Yeah. Not a whole long. 20, 30 years, something like that. The Revolution is on Bear Hill Road. Okay. Goose Hill Cemetery is over, but this is all DCR area except for the Bear Hill, which is now private.
So the historical stuff around this area as far as the Revolution and so forth, but the scope of the project as far as the state $50,000 is going to be this prison camp ruins and possibly access to it. We'll have to figure that out as well. That might be a possibility. We'll have to look into that as well. We appreciate your input on that.
My initial thoughts would be sprucing up the parking areas. Have a nice parking area. Informational kiosk here with a nice roof, something. This is what was here. This was not just something for your kids to tag. This is what was here. This is where, because you didn't have refrigeration, this is where the potatoes and stuff were kept. This is the root cellar. They served a purpose. Oh, we didn't always have a refrigerator? No, you didn't always have ice, right? So, Michelle?
Yeah, I have a question. So there are like foundations across the street too.
Yeah, we'll go take a look at them. That I believe is referred to as the wall.
And even walking up from the cemetery, there's steps. You can see there are still steps going up to nowhere. They go up into a field right now.
There was something there, and I believe that might have been the superintendent's.
I think so. Pastor more toward Charnock Hill Road.
Yeah.
So I would hope, would we be incorporating like all of there's like all these mini ruins around.
Yes.
Like these are the big ones.
Right.
But I think we don't want to lose sight of
Right.
all of it, right?
And that's why I think the Historical Society's informational map
Yeah.
of the farm or what was here
Yes.
would be important, so people could stop and look at. So, oh, I'm right here at the sheriff. Oh, right there was actually the hospital. There's a hospital here.
Yes.
You know, and things like that. I think that would be important. And
So
if
if we have
anything
one
that's
big one, but could we have tags at the different, like you're here, this is number 1 or number 2 or number 4?
I would like to have that. And what type
That
of
would be
tag?
wonderful.
What
Yeah.
type of tag would we be talking about?
I was just thinking, like, like it would be like that high, just a
Yes.
thing with a number on it.
Yes.
Like, and it could be
Absolutely.
wood or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be super expensive.
Yep, 45-degree plate on some sort of respectable
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Grass.
Yes.
This was it.
Yes.
to the next one.
This is
Yes.
And map
Like a-
out
like a
yes,
guided
that's a
tour.
great idea.
Oh.
Map out a hike to all the different spots.
a walking tour.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that idea.
And have different loops, right?
Yes.
So that if you can't do it all in one day, you do this.
Come and take the walking
Make a
tour,
path.
like Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they bought this was 900 acres.
That's the DCR.
Walker's Farm and some other places. And Weaver's Farm, the house is on the corner. There's a map, but it's not, I don't know if the map that everyone has is, there's one that's drawn to scale, and then there's one that a guy did from memory, okay?
Yeah, the one from memory is posted on the Historical Commission page.
Yeah, and it's printed. I got one right in my pocket here. I mean, they're all over the place. But there's one that the MDC did. They photographed every building before they tore them down. Everyone. And so if you go on MDC site, and I haven't lately, but you can see down there where the chicken farm, where the where the cows were, all those buildings, where the powerhouse was. They have, and somebody was saying about falling in a hole. They had a powerhouse, so they had steam running to every building, up to the hospital. Every building had, not this, of course, but any building that was heated had steam going to it. Because when we were kids and we'd come and play here, you'd go in those tunnels, and eventually people took the pipes, because they were scrapping and stuff. It's like the crosses. One day all those iron crosses were gone. When I was a kid, maybe they were like 14, I'm going to guess.
Yep.
One of our local neighbors broke them up and sent them up to Guy Boose's junkyard and collected the money.
Very sturdy that, somebody wouldn't be apt to destroy, whether accidentally or maliciously. They would want to keep that in mind.
it was an engraving.
Yep, yeah, it's some sort of marker. I also like the idea of cleaning up around the area.
Yes.
I mean, if you
There's QR codes that you can QR code that'll link you out
DCR, they last year's, they just wanted to do it easier. And they told us, we're gonna close the gates year round and be done. There's a reason to be here, and you see the reason. You want to keep it alive. There's a reason for us to be here. This is our place. And we are the place. So there's more than just hot digging. There's a little bit of horses. Where would you rent a horse? There's a shoe in there. All right. They're talking about fencing it off. Wrought iron posts that we can't go in.
And I wondered if you saw some.
Remember the Historical Society, we have members of the Historical Commission, which is a sworn government body for the town that charges for serving the history and culture. They told us there's nothing here, therefore we're
So
gonna
the
raise
town,
it.
the MDC right those and had this all in dirt. So you couldn't get in. Gradually the dirt got down. So kids, we would crawl.
station too in the ballpark there. So are you guys thinking about spending money stabilizing something like this?
No. I don't think we need to build on this thing or even touch this thing. We want to preserve it.
Pine after they tore it down. So here, you don't, this is a piece of cut stone, and you know, somebody's going to take it one day when they know what it is. But right here, there was a stone, and it said 1904 on it. Tapered, as wide as that, about that big and that thick. We dried our ponies down here. I kept it with the red pine needles, and I covered it from when I was 12 years old because I knew the value of it. Because it said 1904 on it. Right. So maybe, I don't know, I'm going to say 30 years ago, one of my cousins from Rutland and a couple others, we came here, got our pickup maybe over there, dug it out, put it on rollers, rolled it, flopped it into my pickup, took it home, and it is now the stone. When you go into my house, you see this cut stone, it says 1904. It came from right there. Oh, okay. I got the best souvenir. Yeah, right. You know, pigs, the ice house, that stuff was, you know, down where we're parked. There's one place, I haven't found it lately, but like I said before, but one of the reasons they left, and it's in there somewhere, and the wall is still there. It's a wall like that. So they had an anti-tank gun, and they shot, and you can still see it. They shot a hole through, and there's rebar, and you look at the rebar, and it's just pushed out so that blown out. I think the motorcycle gang took off when all that happened. But if you can, it's on a wall that's standing, and it's down. You know, you have to go through there a ways, but unless that wall is falling over.
Chief, yeah, they had the state police were activated and they all came out here, but they really didn't cause any trouble. This was like they were doing their thing, but it was interesting telling the stories. Little old Rutland, they came out here to
the Army, the National Guard bivouac thing. That was part of the reason. We'll be there and they'll get out.
Yeah.
There's rebar, and you look at the rebar, and it's just pushed out so that I think the motorcycle gang took off when all that happened. But if you that was kind of the reason.
So this would be great. You put a marker right here. This is right here. Watch your eyes.
When we get up here, I got a photograph, postcard from about 1905 or 6 of the hospital. And I've seen pictures of the outside of the hospital, and it's this big 2-story building. And you go, what? When you look at the inside, there's only like 14 beds because it's a vaulted ceiling. That second story, there's nothing there. It's just open air. But the idea is TB, we want air circulating, we want facing the sun. The building was facing east to west, the sun facing the hospital. They're pretty checked out on how they...
And they stock pheasants right here. The state. This is where, this is why people come pheasants. That's where.
This used to be the hospital, huh? Hospital, it's not a forest.
At the very least, a marker, a roadside marker with a picture of what used to be here. And explanation.
Come up here, I want to orient you where I have this photograph.
We may have some people problems getting up there. Any way we can do it from down here? Any way you can do it from down here? I'd hate to have everybody have to climb this.
Try not to bite on it. That'll show you. And if you count the beds, there's only like 14 and 16 beds. So it's a rectangle, and it's kind of unusually made because it's got the footing and the foundation, and then it's got piers, 2 in a row, then 2 and 2. So when you see the building in a picture, you say it's 2 stories. Well, it's 2 stories high, but that's all that space open in there. And if you count the beds, it's like, you know, like I say, 14 beds, 16 beds.
Very interesting. So is this something we need to clean out the informational marker?
Everyone get to see the picture of
On the inside too, yeah.
It's close to the, it's not the cell block.
Right,
That's why they have
one there. What they were saying.
clear the land.
Sunshine and
Exactly.
everything. I know.
And there's a little parking spot right there. Wooden stakes in there done by a sculptor.
Yeah, it decomposes, yeah.
In the cemetery, and we'd have to apply.
And there's the stuff that I was talking about on the way to do stuff.
So
Now,
it's,
this is the hospital. See, here's the foundation. And it's double. Here's the building, and this is the building. They had pipes going around. I mean, you can probably see this. Oh, it only goes. Discovered the concrete formula in the 1870s. So if you look at a railroad bridge, the concrete formula in the 1870s. Because if you look at a railroad bridge, the cut stone, and then all of a sudden, mid-1870s, they start using concrete. Well, the point that I'm getting at is this is poured reinforced concrete. You take a look at this building right here. There's no poured reinforced concrete anywhere. That's all stone, right? They took a piece with a face. And what happened was, this was farmland and a farm way before the hospital and the prison came here. So they used the buildings that were here if they could. And this building, which I have no clue what it was, but you can see that this isn't something that they built, because this is all stone laid in by hand long before the hospital got here.
Well, it could have been a basement, right?
Oh, it definitely was, and it was probably
See the
drive-in.
sunken area.
You know, it looks. I couldn't tell you what had been in that end, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, three-sided drive-in. Like underneath it, there's some kind of a barn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and an easy shot to get to the hospital is just going to go right up through the field there. Yeah. And this is where we got the roses and the arborvitaes, right?
Question, is this something that should be clear?
yes, good. This is because to me this is one of the outstanding structures. Yeah, yes it is.
met him. Guy at Rutland, 1881, was one of the Minutemen on something out by Paul Revere, discharged and from service 1781. And his son Nathaniel Chickering, 1775 to 1852. Was one of the, I thought it said alarm men, but I'm just seeing Minutemen, called out by Paul Revere. One of the Minutemen called out by Paul Revere, discharged from service in 1781.
So, for Revere.
Yeah, they all were. Yeah. Yeah. And they all, a lot of them came from Sudbury, and they found Rutland. A lot of people have Sudbury roots. And that was it. Yeah. It's a, you know, if you got time, sometimes come and look around. There's a lot of stories.
Smith.
Although not buried there, there's a memorial because his ancestor is on the
Reenactment.
So that shows, I guess it was the first white on white court system, you know, and accountability, things like that.
I'm not sure.
And there was, the Catholic Church was over by the Paxton line, and then this was New Boston, and then by the Forces Club is the Dublin section in there. So there was that. Yeah.
What year was that? And it would be a real asset to the town is when she died, because she took over her husband, fourth husband. He was some big shipping maggot, right? Magnet.
Magnet.
He was a, and 25, the new husband says, no, that's assault and battery. We won't sue for your freedom because the new Constitution of Massachusetts says that all men are born. So it went to the Supreme Court. Who's asking about the dates? 1910 and
Just to give you a background, Senator Gobi gave us $25,000 as part of the state budget. Is the courthouse, which has supposed to be permanent, a couple of weeks in there, getting into the building. So, 25,000, we put that out to bid. Not us, but the town did. Joe Buckley and Russell. The bids came back unbelievably high. I think the lowest was like $76,000 to replace that roof.
Not real. Not.
Yes.
I have 90.